Hi, I'm Nick and this is the TBT channel. Welcome back to this part 2 of the Weihrauch HW90 strip repair and rebuild video. Now, it's all gone weird. Okay, it has all gone weird. This gun came in because a friend of mine had an HW90 that wouldn't hold air. The problem with it is, in fact, if you see here, just at the end of that channel, there's a hole. And if I put my finger there or something, well, basically, if I put that through, you can see that's a hole. Okay, what's happened is, during cocking, the previous cocking shoe broke. Okay, it sheared, and the end of the cocking arm, with all that pressure on it when that let go, punched a hole through the weak metal, the thin metal at that point. Obviously, with that hole in place, air, I've mentioned this before, air is quite small. It can fit through very small holes, and it all pissed through that in no short order. It isn't really repairable. It's not viable to try and weld it and repair it and things like that. So I had been searching for a replacement piston. Now, they're like rocking horse teeth. I'd been looking for a while. So had Joe, the lady who owns this gun, to no avail. And then one became available, and I bought it, and I got it, and I've just unwrapped it from this box here, ready to present it to you. And this is how we do it. And this is what I've got. Okay, now that's an HW90 piston. That is completely different. Sorry, I'm still thinking, I'm still working this out in my tiny little man brain. This forms a gas ram. This has a gas ram inside of it. And by probing down inside of this hole, you hear that? What's inside of that hollow rod there, at that point, is a latch rod. This is a gas ram piston for an HW80. Now that's lovely, it's great, it's quite rare. It's bugger all use to me, if I'm honest. I don't want or need it, but that is what it is. It is a gas ram piston for an HW80. I'll probably try and fit it into my HW80 later on today, make another video to show you it in use. But because I run my HW80 at 17 foot-pounds, which is legal, by the way, for me here, it's my preferred power, I don't see why I would continue with the gas ram unless it shoots really nicely at 12 foot-pounds. Maybe I'll try short stroking with the gas ram, I don't know. But anyway, that's a whole world of possibilities, and in its own way is quite awesome. But it ain't going to help me fix this HW90. It is the wrong piston. I can't even fit it in here and try it, although it's the right length to the rod and blah, blah, blah. Simply because the elite trigger unit, elite, not the perfect, as I got wrong in that should I buy video, the elite trigger unit latches on to the side of the piston there. Okay, we've got a little thing for it to latch onto. Clunk, latches on. This one has a latch rod. It has nowhere, I mean, if you look where the latch actually is, it's nowhere near. So it physically will not work inside of this gun, which leaves me bereft. But we shall persevere, because if nothing else, perseverance is probably somebody's middle name. What I'm going to do today, because Joe wants her gun back, and I don't know how long it's going to take me to find a replacement HW90 piston. If you have one, please get in contact. I really, really would like one to get her gun working. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a spring conversion. Okay, so we're changing this to repairing the ram to a spring conversion. Now, spring conversions are quite a common thing with gas rams. People get tired of... I don't think gas rams are a problem. I think they're a reliable power source. A lot of people thought after the should I buy video that I'm against gas rams. Really, I'm not. I think they're quite good, but dust is their enemy. If you get dust in there, you're forever going to be fighting leaks, and people give up and they put a spring in. And that's okay. But what I'm going to do today is put a spring in just so it works. It's not going to work very well with any particular power, but it is going to be usable because the only spring I can find that physically fits. Our premium springs are too wide. I dare say if you're doing this yourself, you can cut this off or change this and change that and change the other to make it all work. This is a temporary fix for a friend. So I'm the intention, the long-term goal with this gun is still to take it back to a ram, find another piston. I'm just going to make it work in the meantime. But our premium spring is too wide in diameter for this part. Last week I took apart a commutator. The commutator spring is a perfect size. It's not going to give an awful lot of power. I don't expect it to give a lot of power, but it will make it work. And for today, that's enough. We're going to rebuild it. We're going to rebuild it, and I'll describe it as if it had the ram, and it will come back and do the pressurization of a ram at a later date when somebody gets in contact and says, I've got one of these you can buy off me. But we're going to rebuild it as a Springer. That's that explained. I'm sorry if you're upset or feeling let down or disappointed. Trust me, nowhere near as much as I am, and Joe will be as well. But there you go. We shall move on. We shall move on and we shall rebuild this gun and we'll make it fire. If nothing else, we'll make it, which it couldn't do before. It's sentimental value. Joe's had this since she was a young boy. So we'll get this back together. Now, the first thing I'm going to do. What is the first thing I'm going to do? Does anybody know? We're going to put the piston in first. Sorry, I'm trying to keep the disappointment out of my being. I'll smile. Smile and the world smiles with you. I'm just a little disappointed for her and for you. Right, I've got my bum slide. Other products are available. It's a high molybdenum paste, okay? I saw recently a thread on one of the forums that I go on, one of the good forums that I go on. People asking about dry slide, molybdenum power dry slide. Is it any good? The answer is yes. The reason I do this paste and not a dry slide is everything I do has to be usable by everyone. Okay, you don't need to have a degree to fit a TBT kit. You don't need to be an engineer. You just need to be able to hold a hammer by the right end and follow instructions, really. And it is easier not to make mistakes with a thick paste that you can see when you've put it on than it is with a powder. So that is the only reason. But this is still a very, very high molybdenum content, and the carriers we use in it discourage dieseling and things like that. So it's gonna work extremely well. But you can use dry slide if you want to experiment with things like that. But please only use molybdenum products in your gun, never silicon. So there we are. I have put bum slide at the front of the piston along these two raised sections here, and I have wiped it upwards around the piston seal there. Now I shall introduce it into my previously degreased compression tube. Go in there, please go in there. I'm not in the mood. Dun, 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 dun. It is your major malfunction. It's trying to get it to go in all the way round without the lip. Push it in with a nail on any bits where it is resisting. Let me get some glasses onto the matter here. Find out what its major malfunction is, Private Pile. The thing is, this gun I think has been abused over the years. I've got various chunks, lumps and bumpy bits over it. I don't think this is the first time it's been apart. There we are, just needed pushing in correctly with my glasses on. So that goes in. We should use the rod to seat it all the way down inside of the compression tube. That's lovely. Now we need to put our cocking shoe in there. Okay, now I do have bum slidey fingers. Again, do love a bum slidey finger. Just going to get a little bit of extra, put that on the bottom there and down the edges on the top. and we put this in. So if you imagine it's a little car, it's facing towards the back like that. Okay, so that goes into there. Slidey, slidey, lovely, lovely. Favourite screwdriver for a bit of support. Come on, come on, you can do this. You can do this. There we go, that's in place. Now, sorry, my iPad's there because I've been doing research on the piston trying to find out what the bloody hell was going on. I was thrown. It threw me. I was thrown. I will say that now. We get our barrel. The first thing we want to do is dip the end of the cocking arm into the little pot of bum slide. Just to get some on there. So it gives it a good bit of lubrication inside of the cocking shoe. No, the first thing we want to do is get it between the jaws there. We've got two jaws underneath the compression tube. Okay, so make sure we've got it into position there. No, we don't. It does go in there. It does go in there, but then we have to somehow. Oh, my shoulder's hurting. There we are. Okay, unlike other guns, this is quite a, let me just show you why that. As I said before, I haven't practiced this. It's been a while since I've done one. But what we've got here, we've got this almost bridge, almost similar to what you get on an HW90/99, but it's open at the top for the cocking arm to go through, which is groovy. But the cocking arm has this bit of plastic here, and it's just at the point where this plastic is that it wants to locate into that thing there, and that bit's too wide. So what I think we have to do is first of all just put a little bit of bum slide just to discolour the plastic on that section there that rubs onto that. Put that onto there, and then that will drop down. So we've pulled it apart, that's going to drop down. We're going to get the cocking shoe, all live, not rehearsed. Cocking shoe, cocking arm, cocking arm, cocking shoe. Bring that along to the gap, push it into place. There we go. Now that's running in its channel. That's in the correct place. Groovy. Now we need. What do we need? We know what we need. You know what we need at this point. We need our magic Bic Biro pen lid. Let me just find that. So there's my magic Bic Biro pen lid. I get my shims. I make sure I've got the smooth side, not the threaded side, facing upwards. Push a shim in. Push it in using the pointy part of the Bic pen lid. And then centralise the hole using the rounded side of it. Then we get our bolt and our locking washer, and we drop that into the hole. We turn the gun over, we get our other shim, bum slidey fingers, push that into there, lifting it slightly so I can just pull the bolt down a couple of millimeters to give that free movement to go into there, locate it upwards, and that's it. So we have got the screwdriver here. We've got the barrel in place with both shims. We've got the piston in place. We've got the cocking shoe in place, and the cocking arm is located inside of there. And now we're going to tension the barrel. Okay. Here's a thing what I had not thought of before, which I should have thought of before, which is going to do nothing but create me issues. Let me just put that back into there. There we are. Now you can actually get that back into place while it's there. Don't let that drop out of there. You're not supposed to cock an HW90 and many other guns as well, but an HW90 in particular out of the stock. So use your thumb to hold that in place while you're doing this, otherwise the cocking arm will fall out of your cocking shoe. And what we're going to do is tension the barrel, okay? And like with all brake barrels, what we're after is just enough, get back in there, see he's escaping, just enough that it's holding itself just at any point there. All right, so that is now correctly tensioned. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Now all we're going to do is replace the ram. Okay, normally you would put silicone grease. Now silicone grease in tiny amounts on here because we've got O-rings inside of the piston to provide an air seal. You do not put silicone anywhere where you've got metal on metal contact, but it is the best thing for seals, for O-rings, for high pressure O-rings and seals and pressurized air. So the tiniest amount of that on there because you do not want it to fling around, and then you insert it and there you go. We have a spring here that we're putting in instead of air, just so that the gun works. So that pushes it down. I've actually got I've got negative preload on here, so I am going to have to do something because that's going to be horrible to fire. I know it's only a temporary measure until we can get this sorted out. Let's put, now that's the steel weight that came in the commutator. I'm actually going to use that as well, just to give it a few more millimeters of preload, just so that we don't have negative, just so that the gun fires. This is not a solution. This is simply making the gun fire and getting it into a working condition until I can find the correct piston for the gun. So I've put the plug into the back, okay, and we've got that is fitting absolutely flush. We've got the Schrader valve to the upper side of the gun, okay, Schrader valve to the top. Then we get the pin which holds the rear block in, and the groove on the pin faces towards the rear of the gun, like that. Give him a wiggle until he goes through, give him a tap if he's being recalcitrant. Get our hex, small hex bolt, and then that goes on to there. Now this is where we are going to diverge, because this has a spring in it. This will now fire. When I put this together, the gun will fire, but yours won't because you have a ram on your one. So what we need to charge up our ram, here's one I prepared earlier, is a Slim Jim pump. That's fun to say, isn't it? Pump. Do you know what? I'm going to do that in a second. I've just realised I've got a whole trigger unit here I haven't put back on yet. Let's put the trigger unit back on first, Nick. That might help. It might not work without a trigger. So that goes there. I'm hoping and I'm thinking that that should all just push back in to place. It isn't. Why isn't it? Bring it forwards. That's it. That's it. Right. I'll probably edit a few seconds of that out. What I had to do was lift up the sear, so there was not the sear itself, but the front face of it was catching on part of the compression tube there. So by looking down there, I could see which part was catching, lift it with the favourite screwdriver, and it just slid very easily into place. That is something, if I'd known about it, wouldn't have caused me a second's hesitation. But because I didn't, it did. But that's the thing with doing these things live. You see me come across problems that you may come across, and how we deal with problems when we find them, which is always a good thing. So that is now in place. The trigger is in there. That is on there. I'm going to show you now how we would pressurize the ram if we were so doing. Inside of my box here, I have an adapter which screws onto the Schrader valve there. Okay, so that screws onto there. Then this part, like with any PCP, and I'm sure you've all got PCPs as well, clips onto there, and we've got a gauge here, and just simply pump it up. Okay, you can hear the air escaping out the hole. So what you do is you put some pressure into there. It doesn't take much. I think, depending on whether it's a late version, early version, HE, things like that, I think realistically, if you start off at about 20 bar, then work your way upwards, you're going to be at a range where you can start testing it. And if you get to a point where you've gone too far, please bear in mind you can pump these up to make them more powerful. You're likely to wreck it if you try, because different versions have different pistons that are designed to work at different powers. If you try and make a 12 foot-pound one work much higher than that, you will just do damage. So check the power. If it's over, what you do is you put your probe onto the Schrader valve there. In fact, you wouldn't even use a hammer. You just use a little screwdriver, and it's just a dump, lightest tap like that, and you hear a little pff, pff, pff each time. From my Theoben Fenman days, I can tell you 2 tiny pfs were half a foot-pound. Now that's a technical measure. That is a technical measure there. So there we are. And once you've pressurized it and got the power to where you want it, your little screw there goes over the Schrader valve to stop any dust getting in there, because dust is the main killer of these guns. And that is it. Now, I do apologise for my despondency in this video. I know it's not me. I know I'm unhappy, and I know it probably comes across. I don't mean to be. I'm disappointed for my customer. I'm disappointed for Jo, because I know she's been looking forward to getting this gun back. She will get the gun back in a firing condition, but it won't be how she wants it. She didn't want a spring conversion. She wanted it back to original. If you know where there's one of these pistons, the big old thing, not one of these, but the big old thing, please let me know in comments below, ring me, whatever. Like, subscribe, hit notifications. Thank you so much for bearing with me on this one, because this was a difficult one for me. I will speak to you all again soon. Goodbye.